Well, hello. Welcome once again to Pale Blends and Beyond. Thank you for joining us today. David Whitaker is an English keyboardist, songwriter, and producer, most known as the last original member of new wave synth pop band Music for Pleasure. Founded in 1979 in Leeds, the original members were Martin King on bass, Alan Peace, lead vocals, Sean Wheatley drums, and my guest today, David, on keyboards. In 1980, Alan Peace and Sean Wheatley were replaced by singer Mark Copson and drummer Christopher Oldroyd. In 1982, Ivor Roberts took the place of Martin King on bass. From the period 1980 to 1985, the band released 7 singles, an EP, and a couple of albums. Music for Pleasure first came to my attention via a track on this various artists compilation. I'll hold it up right there. Hicks From the Sticks. And it was a good find for me. The song is The Human Factor, and it was also the band's first single. And I also have to say that this helped introduce me to some other UK English bands like Clock DVA, Modern Eon, Section 25, and Pete Wylie's Wah Heat. Also on this compilation is a track by Nightmares in Wax, which morphed into Dead or Alive. Post Music for Pleasure, David played on the Danse Society's 1986 album, Looking Through. And then, fast forwarding to 2012, my guest began working with the reformed Expelaires, who also have a track on this, playing live and releasing material. Well, welcome, David.
Hi there.
Thank you for joining me today.
My pleasure.
All righty. Well, take us back to the beginning. Where were you born?
I was born in Leeds, in England.
Okay. You're a lot like I am. I was born in Dallas, so I've pretty much lived my whole life around close to Dallas anyway. Well, talk about some fond childhood memories growing up there.
Well, we're about 60 miles from the coast, so I used to go on holidays, to the seaside, what we call the seaside here, and just those sort of things, playing piano from a very early age.
Okay. When did you first start playing piano? Did you take lessons?
Yeah, I took lessons from about age of 10, something like that.
Okay. Early on, do you remember hearing music being played in the household?
Yes, usually classical music.
Okay.
Everything was classical, usually Puccini, Richard Strauss, Wagner, that type of thing.
Okay. Well, that's not bad to grow up listening to that.
Absolutely.
Were either one of your parents musically inclined at all?
My grandfather was, yeah. He
Okay.
was a jazz musician.
Okay. Yeah, I hear that sometimes. It kind of skips a generation like that. Yeah. All righty. Maybe you got the genes from your grandfather.
I'd like
Can
to
you can you recall one of the first singles or albums that you bought?
Hard Day's Night by the Beatles, the EP. I remember getting that for Christmas.
Okay. All right.
Early 60s.
Was it all wrapped up for you and you opened it and
Yes. Yeah.
you got this? Oh, wow.
Just seen the Beatles. Must have been 60, 61 or something. I went on holiday and they were on top of a building, so waving to people, thousands of people. So I remember that. So I was obsessed by the Beatles.
Is that right?
Really? Yeah.
You saw them early in the early days.
Mm.
Wow, that would be some kind of memory there.
Yeah.
Well, you talked about taking piano lessons. How long did you take lessons?
I started at 10 and then I went into music college. So I've played all my life.
Okay. And did you at that time or a little bit later pick up any other instrument, or was it mainly piano?
I played clarinet and bass, guitar, all that type of thing. Really
Oh,
playing guitar just to try to get girls, really. Nobody
right.
wants to see a bass player or whatever. So I took guitar for the girls, really.
Right, right. You could have been a one-man band there.
Yeah.
Uh, we'll talk about some, I guess, as a teenager, some of the musicians and artists that you were getting into, you were into.
I suppose in the 70s, it was the usual David Bowie, Lou Reed, that type of thing. Um, I really, really enjoyed listening to David Bowie. It was a major influence on so many of us at that age.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. And you know, he was constantly reinventing himself too. I think that's what led to his longevity.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
you know, every album was different. Oh wow. Did you get to see him live?
No, I didn't. And he actually played in Leeds, and must have been 15 or something. I didn't go that evening. I really regret not going. I'd love to have been there.
Yeah, there've been a few bands that came through here when I was a teen and I didn't go for
Mhm.
I had a test or something, and now I regret,
Yeah.
not going. Well, talk about your first band that you were involved with.
The first band was called Ventricles. I mean, I got involved in the punk scene in the late 70s. And I formed that with Alan Peace. Um, so we were together in a punk band for probably about 2 years. And then that morphed into Music for Pleasure.
Ah, okay, gotcha. Did you record anything with that band or?
No, I didn't. No, we never recorded anything. We were just young kids, just messing around, really.
Okay, yeah, you were still
Get our feet.
get, getting started.
Yeah.
Well, what about talk about the history? How did Music for Pleasure come together? You mentioned you and Alan, and talk about the other members, how you guys got together.
Uh, Forming from the sort of like the punk. I mean, it was the usual punk setup of guitar, bass, drums, singer. I bought a synthesizer, um, which I mean, synthesizers were incredibly expensive at that time in the late 70s. But I bought a synthesizer and seemed to sort of like uh, transport us into a different area completely. We
Yeah,
took away from the guitar, lost the guitar, and then just had an unusual lineup of synthesizer, bass, drums, and vocalists. So we were completely unusual at that time.
yeah. You found out that you could make a lot of the guitar almost replace the guitar. The
Yeah,
sound.
yeah. I mean, I use guitar pedals and all that type of things, sort of like to replace a guitar in some way.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. I've heard that story too, that they were very expensive early on. Well, was everybody in the band kind of into the same kind of music, same
Usually,
similar?
yeah, we'd all grown up together in the same sort of area, so we'd meet each other after school and listen to bands like Bebop Deluxe, who were quite underground, but Bebop Deluxe, David Bowie, Iggy Pop, all those sort of things.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I've always been a Bill Nelson fan, big time. Yeah, I mean, I mean, his guitar style was so ahead of its time, still is, I think. Um, well, who?
Eventually, I was asked to join Red Noise, the
Oh, okay.
still in Music for Pleasure, so I couldn't. I felt as though I'd let Music for Pleasure down if I joined Red Noise.
Yeah,
Another another thing I could have done, but I didn't do.
yeah. Where you were loyal to the band you were in.
Yeah, yeah.
Kudos to that. Right, right. Yeah. Well, talk about who coined the name Music for Pleasure. Who came up with the name?
There was an EMI record company called Music for Pleasure, um, which made really terrible cover versions of records in the 70s. Uh, I think I picked the record cover up and said, this will make a great name, which it did. But unfortunately, when we signed to record companies, EMI came back and said we want some royalties for using that name. So we had to pay them, 10% of everything we made or something just to use the name.
Is that right? Oh, yeah. You didn't think about that. Yeah.
No, it's too good.
Why? Pretty early on, I guess there was the first lineup change. Talk about that. Why Martin and no, Alan and Sean? Why were they replaced?
It's just an evolution, really. We want to get more, want to get players who are, or I personally want to get players who are more professional. Who, I want a really good drummer. So really, Sean had to go to get a better drummer, and that's the evolution of every band. You want better players to work with and all that type of thing.
Yeah. Was that kind of a uniform decision, or was it
Yeah, I think so. Although I think I might have manufactured some of the sackings within the band.
Yeah. Well, you were kind of the not front man, but you were kind of the leader of the band. Is that safe to say?
Yeah, to a certain extent. Yeah, I was there, all the time through all the evolution of different players, whatever. I seem to be the mainstay of the band.
Okay. We'll talk about some of the early memorable gigs, live shows that you guys played.
I think some of the most memorable was playing with like Simple Minds. We did Simple Minds touring, I think it was 1980, which was fantastic. That got sort of a major signing with a major label from being, on that tour. And then also working with Talk as well.
Oh,
Talk tour, which was fantastic.
Yes. I was lucky enough to see both of those bands. Of course, much later, not at the same time you're talking about. Yeah, sad about Mark Hollis's passing.
Yeah, very, very sad. Although, I mean, we did a tour and it was like 2 month tour or something like that, and Mark never once spoke to anybody within the band or spoke to anybody within his band. Never saw him talk once.
Is that right?
He was incredibly shy.
Yeah. I've heard, you're right. I have heard stories about that. Wow, but never a word. Wow. Well, where did you record The Human Factor, the single?
We initially recorded in version in Manchester, a place called Smile Studios. And then when we got a record deal with Rage Records, we re-recorded it again in London.
Right. Were you happy with the re-recording?
Yeah, I think I was really. Yeah. It was sort of on the original we used a vocoder for all the choruses, which I thought it'd be better with a real vocalist. And when we got Mark, who was a fantastic singer, things transformed from there.
Yeah. Was that your first time in a recording studio?
I think it was, yeah, actually, yeah.
Was it a bit intimidating or no?
No, I love recording studios. I love the idea of working with people, and I've worked with some like incredible engineers and producers, and it's just nice to sit watching how people work.
Yeah.
So it's a great environment to be in. I mean, I'm in a recording studio at the moment, so
yeah, right.
I'm still here.
You're at home in a recording studio. Yeah, very, very much so. Well, I wanted to hear about, maybe this was a side project around the same time, 1980, Tattoo host Vision On.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier, we talked about Phil Nelson and Bebop Deluxe, his brother Ian, and you played on that album. Yeah.
Yeah, with a guy called Ada Wilson.
Right.
And Ada was also on the album you were talking about, Hicks From the Sticks,
Yes.
with his band. But the beauty of being in, uh, living in England, living in this sort of like small communities, everybody knows each other. So I got to know Ada quite well, and Ada introduced me to Ian Nelson, and we just have this idea of all getting together and throwing some ideas about and recording something. So we put the album together.
Did you hear any reaction to the album? Any either critics or fans or anything response?
No, I don't think we really did it for any sort of like any response at all. It was just sort of like quite cathartic. We just thought some of the tracks were even just improvised, on the moment. We just went in and went in the studio and just improvised tracks. So it was a great album to work on.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting with Ian, pre-Fiat Lux.
Yeah.
Did you watch my interview with Steve and David from Fiat Lux?
No, I know them both very well, but I haven't seen them for a long time.
Yeah, I believe it was last year, the end of last year. But just scroll, on my link, my channel, and scroll down until you check that out when you have some time.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were both very nice, very nice.
Lovely guys.
Yeah, and again, that about Ian Nelson's passing as well.
Yeah.
Well, how was John Leckie chosen as the producer on Fuel to the Fire from 1981?
I think we threw quite a few names about as producers. Our manager just said, make a list of all the producers you'd like to work with. And I put Peter Gabriel, I think Peter Perrett from The Only Ones was talked about. And then somebody said John Leckie. He's worked with Bebop Deluxe. He's worked with the Beatles, I think, or something, or that. So we came across John Leckie and did some demos with him, and absolutely loved the guy. That was amazing.
You worked well together with him.
Yeah, really well. Yeah. I mean, he had a wealth of experience and knowledge. And we were young kids, but I especially, was totally in awe of John. Just amazing.
Yeah. Well, then shortly after, I believe Ivor Roberts replaced Martin King on bass.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Again, does that kind of your decision, or the band's, or what happened?
I think that was the band's decision. After we finished the Simple Minds tour, I think we just realised that we needed a bigger sound somehow. Okay. So we knew of Ivor and his strange bass playing, really. He played like four strings. He'd play four strings together like a guitar on the bass. So we thought it was amazing. So he was the first choice.
Okay, all right. And he fit in real well as well.
Really well, yeah.
Well, what were the circumstances that led to the band being signed by Polydor?
I think we've been approached by quite a few record companies. Polydor seems to be the one that would give us most money, really. I think it was just down to the amount of money that we were given.
Right. Was it a term contract, or was it up kind of up in the air, or what? Do you recall?
It was a term contract. One of the usual sort of 80s contracts where, if you sell 1 million records, then, you get the next, year. If you only sell 10 records, then you've gone, you get kicked off.
Okay, yeah. Well, it's a pretty big label as well. Then the band and Mike Hedges producer that I'm pretty familiar with too, worked on the next 2 or 3 releases. I think that first came into my orbit, Mike, was early Cure material, that 17 Seconds in Faith, which I still go back and listen to. I love that stuff. The 1982's Into the Rain, the first full-length album. Yeah. How did you like working with Mike?
Mike was amazing as well. We'd have people like, Susie from Susie and the Banshees in the studio with us as well. The associates had suddenly turned up at the studio, and it was fantastic to have all these people. We'd finish a track on an evening, and then we'd say, Susie, what do you think? She'd, yeah, it's great. Why don't you put some more strings on, or alter something? So we had all this input as well from people that Mike had worked with.
Is that right? That's very interesting like that. So you got to hobnob a little bit with those other.
Yeah, it just pulled people in. So like it'd ring people up and say, "Come and have a listen."
Okay.
So there'd be somebody from the associates or whatever, sat there saying that's rubbish. Don't put that on, or all that type of thing. So it was great.
Yeah, bouncing ideas off of each other.
Yeah,
it's a good way to grow as well, like that.
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, mentioned how did you feel about the album Into the Rain once it came together and was released?
I wasn't totally 100% happy with the production, to be quite honest. Thought the ideas were amazing, but I think we finished the album and then left Mike to sort of mix it, and I think we probably left him too much. If we'd have been there, would have changed one or two things on there. But overall, the songs were great. And, that was our input.
Okay. Yeah. Also, a couple of 3 singles were lifted from the album: Switchback, Light, and then the re-recorded version of Time.
Yeah.
I really like your synth on Time. I really like that.
Yeah.
That was a little more intricate, a little more developed, I think, than some of the other tracks, but it came across real well on that. And then after the single Dark Crash from '83, Polydor pulled the plug.
Yeah.
Yeah. Were you surprised or no?
Not really. Not 100%. 100% surprised. I mean, as I said earlier, it was all about the amount of records being sold. If we'd have had a top 10, then I would have, thought, yeah, we've got some longevity with Polydor, but we weren't selling the amount of records that we should have been, really, which wasn't our fault. I still blame Polydor. If they'd have pushed a little bit more, we might have had a top 20.
Yeah, so there wasn't a whole lot of promotion behind you guys, or
no, it was always promised, but
okay.
It never seemed to happen.
Yeah. Wonder if their focus was on other band or other bands. A lot of times that happens. They've got a moneymaker, a label. They'll put everything behind them.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate. Looking back in hindsight.
Yeah, in a way, it stifles individuality as well, and
sure.
I feel that the old system where the record companies poured money into something was a wonderful idea. They were the ones that lost if you didn't sell the records, but it still created a system where the best came through to a certain extent.
The cream rose to the top.
Yeah.
I think so. Mm-hmm. Well, let me ask you this about the internet, and decades later, you find a lot of fans followed you, or a lot of new fans have found you.
I think for a long time, music for pleasure was a bit of an unknown, but now, over the last few years, it seems to sort of like things have picked up. People are, hearing things, and I'm not quite sure why or how. But things are, I still get letters now saying, "We love your stuff" and all that type of thing.
Yeah, but you'll find that there's a lot of people looking for rarities and undiscovered bands, and they will bin diggers going through
Yeah.
record stores and things like that, and looking for those rarities, and I'm one of them, so I know I know how I and a lot of these, like the various artist things like that, I've throughout the years have picked up on, and that's how I discovered a lot of good groups, a lot of good bands. Well, I guess if you're not signed to a label, what do? You create your own, right?
That's right.
And you guys did Whirlpool.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that.
It was just out of necessity, really. We had material we recorded, which were demos, really, for the next album with Polydor, and it was just an outlet. We just thought the best way, after we'd been dropped by Polydor, the best way to get all this stuff out, create our own label and take it from there.
Yeah, yeah. A single, Disconnection, and an EP, Chrome Hit Corrosion, released in 1984. I like the cover for Chrome Hit Corrosion.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. Who is behind that, or who helped put that together, the cover?
I think it's a guy called Rob O'Connor from a company called Stylo Rouge,
Okay.
who we worked with on most of the sort of like the Polydor material as well.
Yeah, I like that. Very striking.
Yeah.
Well, then the band's second full length, Blacklands, was released in 1985.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts on this album?
Again, that was mostly demos. Some tracks I just thought were amazing, but it could have been with the hands of a really good producer. It could have been an amazing album.
Yeah. One of probably my favorite on the album is Black Festival, and I think that's probably a lot of fans as well, because it's one of the ones on YouTube out there too. A nice moody instrumental, which is a little bit of a departure for the band, I'd say, but that kind of sound is right up my alley. And then I also like the track Drive. I like that one.
Yeah, Drive is an amazing track.
Yeah.
I also think we were actually getting darker. The music seems to be somehow getting a lot darker than the Human Facts, which in reality is just a pop song.
Yeah, yeah. I think you could see that direction coming to fruition. Well, so how long after Blacklands did the band call it a day?
Not long, probably a year or 2 years at the very most. We were running out of ideas, so we just. I think I'd got an offer from the Danse Society, so I said, I've got this offer from another band. I think we should call it a day at that point.
Okay.
It just fell apart.
Okay. So everybody was pretty much in agreement.
Yeah.
Yeah, you kind of run your course, or run out of steam a little bit. Well, talk about that. How you were. Who from Danse Society approached you?
Their original keyboard player left, and the band then knew a guy called Simon out of a band called the March Violets.
Yeah.
So they approached Simon and said, "Do you know any keyboard players?" And he said, "I know David. He'll probably do it, or have a try." So they called me, and I went down for an audition, and then took it from there.
Yeah. I remember I was DJing at a dance club in San Antonio at the time, and my brother came. He's 6 years younger than me. Came to visit, and he had that album. Looking, he had that album. I remember that very well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I had been into the band earlier on with their always like the single "Heaven Is Waiting."
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a nice dance track too. Well, did you enjoy working on that album?
I loved working with the Danse Society, yeah, and I still see the guys now. So yeah, I had a fantastic time with them.
Yeah. Was there any talk of staying on and working on another release or anything like that, or was it just a one-off thing?
Well, after Steve left, the singer,
Yeah, be rolling.
we got the original singer from Music for Pleasure, Mark, in. We formed like another band called Johnny in the Clouds,
Okay, all right.
which we did a few tracks which were never released, but some amazing tracks which I've still got just stuck on a cassette, probably or something somewhere, which is a real shame.
Yeah, I was going to say maybe if you could unearth that, and
Yeah,
is it still masterable, or do you know?
I would have thought so. Yeah, I'd like to think so.
Yeah, that would be something. Yeah, that
Mm.
would. Yeah, I think fans would be very interested if somehow that could be released or come out. Well, what kept you busy? We'll talk about the other band members once Music for Pleasure broke up. What directions did they go in, or what did they do?
Uh, Ivor gave up music completely, the bass player. Um, Chris went to join a band called the Red Lorry, Yellow Lorry,
Oh yeah, yeah.
and worked with them for a few years.
Uh-huh.
Mark, he didn't do anything at all. He just gave up music completely.
Mhm.
Which is a
Oh,
real shame.
okay. And yourself?
Uh, I went to television, writing music for television programs, which I did for about 20 years after the band thing um, finished. So I've been in music far too long now, probably.
Oh, okay. Well, what kind of specifically for TV? What would you write? And how did
Um,
you how did you get involved in that?
my best friend worked at a television company,
Okay.
and somebody needed a composer for a television program, so they put me forward, and then on, I did it for the next 20 years.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Did you happen to get into any jingle writing, commercial writing?
I did jingles, for like Ford and
Oh,
usual type things. I did that and worked on feature films. I did a film with Michael Caine, wrote the music for a Michael Caine film. So
is that right? Which movie? Which film was that?
it's a really terrible film called Shadow Run.
Okay. Circa what year was that? I don't remember.
Mid-90s, would have thought,
Okay.
like that.
I'm just gonna do a quick look up. Shadow Room, right?
Shadow Run.
Okay, Michael Caine. Michael Caine. Huh, there it is. There it is. 1998.
Yeah,
Okay. All right. Did you enjoy that?
I did. I had a fantastic time, yeah. Although I didn't meet Michael.
Oh, you didn't.
No, still, even composers are backroom boys. Was sort of like I was locked in a studio somewhere, and I was dying to get out and meet Michael Caine.
Yeah. Oh, I bet you were. I would have been too.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Well, how was it? I find that very fascinating. Composing music for film. You have the music that you compose, before it's put into the film, and then it kind of takes on a new life of its own, doesn't it? When
Yeah,
you see the images, the imagery, and all of that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Must be pretty
It's a
proud.
great way of working. This transference of getting an image and then thinking, what can I do with the image to sort of like enhance it and musically.
Yeah,
So
yeah, and to be able to watch back the movie and then hear your music, in that music.
Yeah.
Must be really, really intriguing. Well, so what what were the circumstances around the reformation of the Expelaires? They did that live show in 2012.
Yeah. Um, I'd been friends with David Wolfie, since, I was about a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
So I've known him for a long, long time. And he rang me up one day and said, I know you played guitar in 1978. We're desperate for a bass player. Come and play bass guitar. So I ummed and ahed and then said, yeah, okay, I'll try it and do it. So I just ended up in the Expelaires.
Yeah. Going back to early Expelaires, Craig Adams was a member, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Went on with the Sisters of Mercy and then the Mission.
I saw Craig quite recently. He plays with absolutely everybody. I mean, he's in The Alarm, Theatre of Hate. He's in every band going at the moment.
Staying busy.
Yeah, really busy.
Well, was it, I guess it's kind of a reunion, you guys are in the same city, Leeds, grown up knowing each other and stuff. To get back together at that time after all those years, was it kind of like the magic was still there though?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. As I said, we grew up together, so we knew each other intimately, and it was just really nice just to sort of like, come together and start playing again. It's lovely.
Yeah. And it was the show was at the F Club 35th reunion.
That's right. Yeah.
It was. Okay. And a nice response. Did it go down well?
Incredibly well. Yeah. I mean, they haven't played for 20 years or something like that, so
Yeah.
it's just amazing to be back in that sort of like energy and flow. Amazing.
Did you get a lot of comments from the audience? Like maybe after the show or people coming up to you and
Yeah. Loads of positive comments. Just saying carry on. Want to hear more.
Yeah.
Fortunately, the Expelaires only, I think they did 2 singles or something and never did an album at that point.
Yes. You did the 2014 EP Sick of Lies.
Right, yeah.
First recordings, in over 30 years. Wow. Long time. And then the 2016, the full album Freedom. Yeah. Now, did you play on both of those releases?
Yes, I played bass on all of them. Yeah.
Okay. And you helped produce as well, right?
Yeah. By that point, I had my own recording studio in Leeds.
Yeah.
So the obvious thing was for the Expelaires to come into my studio, and I'd record it and then mix and produce it as well.
Yeah. And were you pleased with the way those releases ended up?
Really pleased. Yeah. I mean, as you said, it's a long time, 35 years or something it's taken him to make that album.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so what's currently going on with Expelaires?
Nothing. Wolfie is now formed a 70s cover band. So he does, Gary Glitter and Slade and all that type of thing. Covers.
The glam rock stuff.
Rest are not doing anything.
Yeah.
I think it was just a moment, to get that album out after so many years, and then when things just went from there, it just disappeared. The energy disappeared somehow.
Okay. But it's good to hear from some of the old fans, I'm sure. We mentioned earlier Music for Pleasure and Expelaires, that have followed you all this time. What I find interesting too is, that the old fans, will turn you guys on to their kids and then their kids,
Many times.
Bringing their kids to the show. Kind of bridging that generation gap and doing that stuff. Yeah, well, how about what's going on these days? Any other musical projects in the works?
We a few months ago we actually talked about getting music for pleasure back for one show. So I spoke to Chris and Ivor. We went out for an evening and discussed, and then we tried getting in contact with Mark, but Mark's just given up singing now completely. So we thought there's no point, getting another singer in. We'll just leave the whole thing. So we just left the whole process.
Okay.
No, nothing happening. I'm a producer now, so I just sit and tell other people what to do.
You enjoy being in the producer's seat?
Yes, I do actually. Yeah.
Well, that's a question I forgot to ask you. Back when you were with Music for Pleasure, you did your live shows and then recording in the studio. Which did you prefer, the recording to playing live?
Yeah, I like recording. Yeah. Okay. It's just the freedom of sort of trying different things out. With a show, it's all very rigid, and the audience expects the song to sound like they did on the recordings. But in a recording studio, you can try things and get different people in. It's a much more sort of better environment for me.
A little more freedom to do that, and also what you mentioned about the live shows, you have to play. I mean, the audience wants to hear the familiar tunes, the popular ones, and finding that balance between that and interjecting the either new material or material they haven't heard, is always difficult, I'm sure, to do that, keep them interested.
Yeah.
I've heard different stories,
especially in the Danse Society. The number of times we played Heaven is Waiting over and over again in every city in Europe or whatever. It just got a little bit boring after a while.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, doing the same song. It's hard to get enthusiasm to do that. You're right. I can understand that, definitely. Well, what was the other question I was going to ask? Throughout your career, with both bands, how would you typically compose the music? Would the music first and then the lyrics, or vice versa?
Music always first.
Okay.
Especially Music for Pleasure. We just rehearse, and I'd have a few chord ideas, and then we just sort of like jam the chord ideas out, and then a song would appear somehow, and then Mark would go away and then come back with some lyrics. And the same in the Danse Society, just chord ideas and a few guitar ideas at that point as well, thrown into the mix, and then some vocals will be put over the top.
Okay, so that's a good way to bring everybody's creative juices into the mix. Okay, I was curious about that. Well, how about looking back on your career? Who have you enjoyed? Well, you mentioned the live show Simple Minds, but any other bands or artists or individuals that you've enjoyed working with or alongside over your time?
I work with a lot of new bands now, a lot of young bands especially. So it's really nice sort of being able to sort of put my older twist on younger material. It's quite a nice amalgam, really. A bit of wisdom with the energy and enthusiasm of youth.
Yes, good balance.
Yeah. I'm there just to rein them in.
Yeah, so you enjoy it. Well, you might mention bands that you're currently working with or have been working with.
Worked with bands called Marsicans, who are very good, but they've just recently packed it in.
Okay.
I worked for the band of the weekend called Walk for Days, who were very good.
Yeah.
Just generally, every day brings something different. Some bad, some good.
Yeah, yeah, it's always the case.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, what kind of music, Walk for Days, would you classify?
So quite unusual punk element, but with different time signatures and a bit about like math rock type thing, but within punk,
Okay,
which is quite unusual.
okay, all right, all right. Well, any other plugs that you'd like to mention, or anybody that you'd like to send out a cheerio to, a hi to, or anything?
Um, Not particularly, not everybody. I mean, America's been really good to for us in music wise. So really, America is sort of like the stem for all our music. Really, it all goes back to Elvis and uh,
Uh, yeah,
even further back to Duke Ellington or whatever. So I'd like to thank everybody there. Really,
for the influences. Yeah, yeah. I know. I hear that too doing these interviews. I think in a lot of cases, I'm a I'm an Anglophile. I mean, I've always enjoyed British, UK music, especially during the '80s. You know, I think you guys put out some really, really great material. A lot of great mid '80s, but particularly. Um, and of course, going back to the '70s as well. But I think you guys you learned a lot from earlier R&B, soul music, American style, and then I think you kind of took it and made it your own. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And it's like you put in your own elements,
yeah.
and
Well,
I think
I talked about the Beatles, exactly the same. They took from Chuck Berry or whatever, and formed their own material out of those sort of artists.
yeah, yeah, you
We
know,
all do it.
there,
We all take something on board and transform it.
there you go. And and there has been a lot of great blue-eyed soul from the UK as
Mhm.
well. I think a lot of people would be surprised that that's an English band. They would think it was a black American band or whatever. But there's a lot of that that's very interesting. So thanks going back to you and and your country as well for not regurgitating. That's a bad choice, but you know, transforming. Yeah, the music. Yeah, yeah, putting your own stamp on it. You know,
Exactly.
exactly, exactly. All right. Well, unless there's anything else, can you think of anything else, David? You'd like to?
No, I don't think so. I think you've covered everything there.
Okay. All right. Alrighty. Well, I will. Let me just say it's been very enjoyable talking to you. You're very laid back, relaxed type. That makes it easy.
Good.
Some are, little high strung.
Yeah.
Would you say?
Yeah.
And
I know where you're going. I know. Yeah.
different people are people. People are different. But yeah, this has made it flow very, very, very well. Uh, I get along well with people like yourself that are more laid back. All right. Well, I will. Usually takes me about a week or so just to edit anything out. There shouldn't be much. Um, and then I'll send you over a link and also post it on my YouTube channel.
Wonderful.
And then you can see if what kind of traction, kind of reaction we get. I always enjoy reading the comments and that kind of thing too. It's always enjoyable. So, all
Fabulous.
right, all right, David. Well, thank you so much again, and I've enjoyed it. All the best to you,
All the best to you as well.
and you take care. And we'll be in touch. Okay.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thanks,
All
Greg.
right. All right.